Can you remember when you were younger, being scared of something? Perhaps the hair raised on the back of your neck. Your heart was racing. And there definitely was someone or something under the bed when the lights went out. Maybe you wanted the light to stay on. And some people get really scared walking outside at night when it's pitch black. For them, it's a life-threatening experience that terrifies them. Something to be avoided at all costs. And for some people, that can become a phobia, fear of the dark. And phobias may be a good thing if they stop us from doing something dangerous. Maybe something that could make us very sick or kill us if we did it. And the phobia could protect us from that. For example, some people are terrified of heights, going out on very high balconies or standing near the edge of cliffs. I remember when I was a kid, I was overconfident, and once I slipped on the edge of a cliff, playing with a friend at a disused quarry. And luckily I managed to grab a tree branch just below the edge and survive by the skin of my teeth. For one terrible moment, I thought I was going to die. And so now I'm quite nervous around cliffs. What if some earth slips due to my body weight, or I faint and fall over forwards, or someone pushes me for a joke, but it's harder than they meant? I've made up my mind that's one way I'm not going to die. Now, while you're thinking about the different ways you don't want to die, you may find it interesting that when people have inhibitions, sometimes breaking the ice can release a torrent of previously totally inhibited behaviour. Perhaps you can think of some of your own inhibitions when you were younger that ended up becoming regular habits. Food, drink, clothes, behaviours, attitudes, ways of talking. And it's interesting how we can change again many times over. Most people change hobbies and jobs many times over their lives. Some because they want to, some because they have to, some because they're too scared to do what they used to, like a professional golfer who suddenly develops the yips, or a rodeo rider who gets scared after fracturing his neck, or a high wire artist who loses his nerve after a temporary dizzy spell when he had the flu, or a headmaster I know who won't go back to his job after being told by a loudmouth parent of a delinquent child that it was all the headmaster's fault, or an alcoholic with liver damage given weeks to live by his doctor who quits drinking because he's too scared of dying, at least from self-induced alcoholic poisoning. And you may be curious whether it's possible to develop a phobia about smoking, whether the fear of a highly probable and horrible death caused by any number of terrible diseases as a direct result of smoking will be enough to inhibit you from even being in the same room as a lit cigarette. Because to develop a phobia, you have to believe that there is a very real and imminent danger, that your life is in terrible jeopardy. And even though you know every case is anecdotal, and it is possible you might escape with your life, you can't count on keeping your health if you have another cigarette. Sooner or later, it will be the last nail in your coffin. How many more times can you gamble like a greedy roulette player and cheat death. Because when you play Russian roulette enough times with your life and your health and the feelings of those you leave behind, sooner or later that gun will go off, and you can't take the bullet back once you've put the smoking gun in your mouth and pulled the trigger. And if you'd be too scared or even terrified of the repercussions on your life and health and the legacy you'd leave to those who care for you, too scared to take a gun with 6 bullets in it marked disease, or a gun with 5 bullets marked early death, too scared to take that gun, put it in your mouth and pull the trigger again and again until the inevitable happens to you. The same thing that has happened to millions of others around the world who are making the tobacco industry rich. Millions of people whose governments are failing to protect them and who, in the end, have no choice but to take personal responsibility for what they do to their own bodies, even though they were tricked into smoking, tricked into thinking it was fashionable and safe, and not told they would be expected to cough up money ad nauseum around the price of a house over a lifetime of addiction to keep the fat cats rich. And as fast as the fat cats' meal tickets die, they just recruit new kids to take their place. The younger the better, because they don't care about what will happen when they get older, and they can pay for longer if they start young. And now, hundreds of thousands of people around the world have decided to stop smoking because they finally understand the terrible reality, and they are terrified what it will do to them if they don't stop. It's as if the cigarette was the barrel of a loaded gun, and lighting the cigarette was like pulling the trigger, or perhaps like putting a stick of dynamite in your mouth and lighting the fuse. And maybe you can be curious about whether you can develop a phobia about putting a loaded cigarette in your mouth. An explosive situation, like a bizarre prop in a spy movie, that's actually true. And if you want to ignite anything, perhaps it can be your own confidence in your ability to change your own behaviour like you have many times before. And it's interesting that a lot of people have given up smoking after being told that their pangs or urges, which some were scared to face, were signs that their bodies were healing or recovering from a toxic, addictive substance, which is a very good thing and something to be embraced. A new good habit, like starting each day with a glass of orange juice, which contains vitamin C that can purify the blood and heal the body and create a new mindset. And if the image of smoking as a deadly bullet or dynamite isn't enough, then the knowledge that urges or pangs can be a sign of healing or recovering from a toxic addictive substance is something you can be reminded of, giving you a very good feeling that can keep you strong and on track each time you notice any urge or pang, any time in the future.